Hello everybody, welcome to StraightA. Dawson here, back with another video, a little extra video for the week, kind of to go on to the daily schedule, or the weekly schedule I should say, of the videos for the StraightA channel. You're going to be seeing this on Monday. It is currently Sunday night, kind of games are wrapping up. I believe Dolphins and Patriots are at halftime right now, so want to make this video to kind of help subside for the week and kind of get you all interested in what the content we're creating here from our weekly predictions, power rankings, stuff like that. Still figuring out what kind of weekly series I want to do on this portion of the week, so around the Monday kind of timeline. So right now I'm still just doing tier lists because wow, that's really really original in my regard. But to kind of help you guys learn more about what I really enjoy about football and what NFL teams and what I really got into it, how I really got into it, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the teams I enjoy and kind of watch and everything. So actually the tier list today will be a tier list on my personal favorite football teams, NFL teams specifically, and kind of ranking them from my team all the way down to straight F teams. So my teams are my personal favorite teams, the teams I'm going to root for. They're who I am, basically, and they're the teams I'm always going to strive for to go to the Super Bowl every year. I'm always going to be that diehard fan and kind of hope, cross my fingers and hope that they make it one day, type thing. Always rooting for them will be the tier that kind of shows the teams I'm always kind of looking to see win, looking to do well, and I'll always cheer for them when they get to the Super Bowl too. It's in it, it's in me for that. So, like them enough are just teams that I see, I'm like, you know what, I want to see them win. I want to see them win this game. I want to see them do this, whatever. They exist tier is a tier that's going to be based on a few teams that I just don't have really an opinion of. Maybe some people have an opinion of them. Maybe they're your teams. Maybe I just don't have an opinion on them myself. So they just exist for me. They're not good. They're not bad. Whatever. Not my cup of tea is going to be a tier for teams that are just, again, not my cup of tea. Teams that I just, whatever, I dislike them a little bit, but not like a whole ton. But like, I just don't want to see them win, especially if they're facing teams above them. In my personal, favoritisms, hating on them are teams I just, I don't like. Just feel like I just don't vibe with them at all. I'm just hating on them a whole lot. And then straight F teams are just the teams I consider my least favorite teams in all the NFL. While I am a viewer who enjoys all the teams in their own ways, and especially depending on the players, I'm much more of a player person. I like the stories that get built from the players, the coaching staff, stuff like that. But as a franchise, what are my experiences with these teams? And that's going to kind of play into it. Is that there's a brand with all these teams, and I was a marketing major if you couldn't tell. There's a brand for all these teams that I'm just stuck with one way or the other, and that this is my current standpoint going into the 2023 season, 2023-2024 season. And it may change a little bit, but for the most part, it's going to stay the way it is. My teams will always be my teams, and so on and so forth. And some of the straight F teams will probably not change, at least very much. And you'll be surprised with some of the ones, especially from the teams that are my teams, of teams that I actually enjoy or teams I don't mind as much. So really cool. This is a nice little video to kind of get you to know me a little bit, me talk about the history of me watching football. It's not a whole lot of history. It's mostly recent years, but also kind of a stemming from watching it with my dad and kind of getting into football a little bit. So without further ado, how this will work is top left means it's my favorite, bottom right means my least favorite. So from left to right will be left to right, and up to down will be my favorite to least favorite. So kind of roll with it. You'll roll with it pretty nice. First up, we're going to go on the tier list. We're not going to go in any specific order. I have a rough idea where some of these teams are, but I don't know exactly where they're all going to go yet because I haven't really done this before, at least not in a while. I think I did it when I came back to football, but I haven't done this in a while. So it'll be really exciting. First up, the Saints. Really easy one for me. I have a mindset of two different things. I have an AFC team and an NFC team, and the New Orleans Saints are my NFC team. 100%. I've kind of been in hibernation. Even coming back to football, I've kind of paid attention to them. Jameis Winston kind of got me a little bit into it, but they were so mid that I just really didn't have much care of it. Plus, the AFC was so much more interesting to me. A lot more storylines are being built overall there. So my attention really got away from the NFC for a while. But now Derek Carr is actually starting to make me care a lot about this team again. And just seeing what's happening over there. It's just really cool. I love the New Orleans Saints. That's kind of my team I chose as my unofficial second favorite team type deal, because I have my favorite team. They're not my favorite team by any means, but they are my NFC team. Or if I wanted to see a Super Bowl, I'd want to see my AFC team and the New Orleans Saints go at each other. So I love the Saints, love their history, and I mean, how can you not? How can you not just love the branding and imaging? I don't know. I'm just a big Saints sucker, I guess. Saints sucker. That's kind of pretty cool. But my history with that was just kind of when I got into football a little bit. I decided I needed another team, one that was outside of my dad and outside of, something that made me more me. And New Orleans Saints is what I stuck with. Drew Brees at the time really kind of made me feel passionate about it. Of course, call me a bandwagoner a little bit with it because it was a good, popular team at the time. But I think around 2013, this is about 2012, 2013 era. That's when I kind of really got into football. Maybe a little bit before. I was about 11, 12 where I started watching it, but mostly with my dad as a way to bond. And then kind of go into 2014, 2015, and eventually kind of subsiding a little bit over time in 2016, 2017 era, and then kind of coming back more in the recent 2020, 2021, 2-3 era. So that's kind of my overall history, but the Saints kind of always were that NFC team where I really want to see them win. But the NFC is also a team, like the more of the side where I enjoy the players. And again, that's going to come down to it a lot, is that I enjoy the players a lot. And right now, the Saints have a good cast over there that make me care about the Saints. So, straight into the point. Then, moving on, I have probably so we're getting a lot of the favorites out of the way. The Miami Dolphins, I'm always going to root for them. I don't know, for some reason, a lot of people, they seem like a team that wasn't a whole lot of interest towards them for a while. And for some reason, I always loved the history of them being the only team that won what's called 12-0, I believe, in the regular season, and went to the Super Bowl and won it. So they were undefeated through the whole season. I love that stat for some reason. I just love the story history. I'm big, Dolphins just sounds like a really cool team. It's more aquatic. I'm more of an aquatic guy. And especially in recent years with Tua, Tyreek Hill now, Jalen Waddle, the explosiveness of that team is just so fun to watch. I mean, it's so great to see. And they're always rooting for them because I just love seeing that kind of team explode onto the market and kind of go and do well. I don't know. It's always something for me where the Dolphins just felt like a really fun team to watch. Maybe then they weren't always. I don't remember every single game I've ever watched of them, but they've always seemed really fun and a good franchise history. Not anything too, prestigious, but not anything too, poverty, basically. And I just always root for them. So take that as you will. You got the Baltimore Ravens. Man, Baltimore Ravens, I'm just going to be hating on them. I'll be honest. I'm just going to always be hating on them. Recent years, I don't mind them as much. They maybe are leaning more into not my cup of tea. But the Baltimore Ravens just seem to always kind of come up in my team's kind of history books when it came to the recent year success of my team, which we'll get to here in a little bit. But the Baltimore Ravens, I don't know. I like the purple aesthetic of them. I like the Raven, but I've never really enjoyed the team enough. I always felt like a kind of an arch enemy in a way, like a little nemesis for my team. And I don't want to get too much into that just now, but I'm always gonna be hating on them for some reason. Just feels that aesthetic, that Edgar Allan Poe makes me just feel the aggression come from it. So I've never enjoyed the Ravens too much, but I also appreciate them. With all these teams, pretty much, maybe except for some straight F teams, I'm always going to enjoy them just a little bit. So take that as you will. The Cincinnati Bengals. So maybe they're going to hover around the middle portion area from like them enough to not my cup of tea. And I think between everything I know throughout the history of this, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins starting to make me care a little bit, but at the same time, they're also one of those teams that just is starting to get to the popularity point. I'm also one of those people that doesn't love bandwagoners. I don't love popular teams. I like going for those teams that are kind of niche in a little bit. And the Bengals are one of those teams where I think they gotten popular, and good for them. They're doing really well. They're really fun to watch. They're really fun to watch, but they just exist for me. They definitely exist in the franchise very well. They have a good recent history with the players they had and the games they played, but they just exist to me as a team. They're just not, they kind of hover around the not my cup of tea, but I enjoy watching them. I think the Bengals are fun, and I do kind of root for them kind of mentally, but they just kind of exist overall for me, so there's not really much to say about them. Now we can finally go on to, instead of saying my team, I can finally say my Denver Broncos. In case this is the first video you watched, my Denver Broncos are the team I love the most. My dad, kind of growing up, loved the Broncos. I watched it with him. I bonded with him shortly, I think, right into getting into football. I think that first off season I really watched with him, Peyton Manning went to the team. It was between that and the Titans. I believe, at the time, and he went to Denver, had a great couple years there. Loved it. Watched Super Bowl 50 with my dad, and got to watch our Denver Broncos take home the Super Bowl trophy. And ever since then, it's always been my team. I love the Denver Broncos. Even since then, since we've been more of a mid team, from the 7-10, I think 5-12. Well, I don't know exactly, 5-14, whatever. 5 wins, 7 wins. We've never been the worst team in the NFL, but we have not been the best in a while. And I'm still going to root for them from the Drew Lock days, Teddy Bridgewater days, to now the Russell Wilson days. I'm always going to root for my Denver Broncos. They're always going to be fun to me, and it's a hard team for me not to love. I love Colorado. I've been out there once now. Twice now, I believe. Yeah, twice. I love it out there. Great atmosphere, and from everything I've seen, a great community, and I just love the overall vibe and the history. The Denver Broncos are a good example of a team that are more in that niche where they have a good franchise history. They have a great franchise history, actually. They're prestigious enough, but they also don't have 6, 5, 4 Super Bowls. They have 3 Super Bowls, and they have a history of good players, but they don't always make it to the playoffs. They don't always make it to the Super Bowl. They're kind of those teams that you can kind of root for, I think, for a lot of people. And while some people may hate the Denver Broncos, they're my team through and through. If you watch other videos, you will not be surprised by that from any means. I always talk about Denver Broncos and how much I love them, just because it's my team. It's always going to be my team, and I'll always appreciate them. But now I can refer to them as the Denver Broncos rather than my team. And that will kind of impact a lot of the other teams. Of course, I root for, because I think Denver Broncos I am strongly for. But you'll be surprised by the amount I'm not against some certain teams for that reason, So it's kind of hard to describe almost. But the Baltimore Ravens, kind of hinted at before, feel like every time we felt like we were doing something right, the Baltimore Ravens kind of came in and boom, hit us with something and kind of ruined our chances of really making an impact in the what's called the some of the most recent seasons. There we go. Gosh dang, words are hard right now. But yeah, Denver Broncos are my team. The New York Giants. This team's a hard one because they kind of hover near the bottom half for me. I don't like them enough. Maybe I don't necessarily hate on them. I just think they're just not my cup of tea. They're whatever. Their logo doesn't really scream anything to me. It's a storied history. I get it. Just kind of a whatever to me, though. They kind of exist, but I'm just not my cup of tea. I'd rather see them lose more times than not. So they bring a strong enough feeling for me to say they're not my cup of tea rather than they just exist. But their storied history is kind of cool. Eli Manning playing for them for the longest time, of course, cool because Peyton Manning. My dad did get to meet Peyton Manning when Peyton Manning was in college, not my dad. So that was kind of cool. But Eli Manning, it was kind of goofy and funny, a little awkward, but kind of fun. And they're cool to watch in that kind of time frame of 2013, 2014 eras. But they're just not my cup of tea. Whatever. Minnesota Vikings. This one's also a hard one for me. I'm just going to say they exist. They're going to be right above the Bengals for me, just like the Broncos are right above the Saints. The Vikings just kind of exist. They have been cool in recent years. Kirk Cousins is kind of funny. I like seeing some of this stuff. Adrian Peterson, maybe care about him for a while too, at least specifically him. But I've never really revolved around that brand too much, around the Minnesota Vikings. I got really not too much to say. I almost want to put them in like them enough, but I think they just overall just exist for me. I just think they are a team that I see play another team, and I'm like, okay, cool. Let's roll with it. So that's all I really got to say about them. The Rams. I don't know. I don't know where the Rams go right now. I'm kind of thinking because they can go all the way from hating on them all the way to always rooting for them because I think they have a very up and down history overall. However, I am going to put them in like them enough just because I do have an emotion towards them. They're not just they exist. I think most of the time with the Vikings and Bengals, I just think, okay, they exist. I'm kind of rooting for them depending on the matchup and depending on the people playing for them. But the Rams, I think overall as a brand, even from their St. Louis, what's called relocation, I think the Los Angeles Rams kind of evoke more of a, like, oh, I'm happy to see them because I like the storyline they created from winning a Super Bowl, from making a super team, and are now recovering from that, big, festive win they got, quite frankly. And I think that's in more recent years that I really had some emotion towards them. I think I don't even really remember having much reaction to them when I first watched football. But I think I like them enough because I see them like I want to cheer for them just because it feels like they're underdogs. I like underdogs. I think everybody loves underdogs in one way or the other. So I love the Los Angeles Rams, or like them enough. Sorry. I think it's gonna be. I think they're pretty cool. Find them to the point, like them enough. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm gonna put them right up here with the Giants. I'm not my cup of tea. Again, I have some emotion towards them, but they're right above the Giants in my regard. They're cool. They're fine. Tom Brady made it more interesting. I actually enjoy Tom Brady. I have a greater appreciation for him now than I did when I was, of course, in the prime Broncos fan of the Super Bowl 48 to 50 range. So take that as you will. But it's a cool brand. I think I like the aesthetic. I love their their stadium. Holy crap. I love the Buccaneers. It just seems like a good, like, I don't know, not niche, but like name. It just feels cool. For some reason, though, I just don't find them that interesting for the most part. There's not my cup of tea, quite frankly. I have enough positive reaction that my negative reaction kind of makes that more of a negative reaction, if that makes sense. That I have enough positives there from them that they're significant enough for me to be aware of the negatives that I have for them. That's the best way to describe it for them. They're kind of in the they exist era, but they are overall just not my cup of tea. Whatever. Baker Mayfield, love Baker Mayfield. So we'll see if he gets me to like him enough, but we'll see. Anyway, moving on to the point. The Lions, I'm always rooting for them. They're going to be above the Dolphins in that regard. I love the Lions. I mean, they're an underdog team, historically bad franchise, and I want to see them win. Dan Campbell's going to lead them to the promised land. Love the Lions, and I hope they have good success, and I'm always going to be rooting for them to have that success. And yeah, even above the Dolphins, I think it's just hard for me not to root for the Lions, who have had historically bad history, especially since the Super Bowl era. I want to see them do something great. I want to see them make a big impact, and I want them to see them to make history. I want to see it, and hopefully they will in this 2023 season. But we'll see. Time will tell. The Chicago Bears. And maybe it's, again, with some of these historically good teams, or historically, I shouldn't say good teams, but significant teams, I'm kind of in this little bottom area. I'm going to give them the above on the Baltimore Ravens and the hating on them. Again, it just feels really boring. I get it. It's historical. The Chicago Bears, the Chicago, I feel like their fans are just not also team like the ones I vibe with. I don't vibe with the community a whole lot. So I'm kind of hating on them. I'm kind of a hater of the Chicago Bears, but they're not the worst. I think I could have other teams I hate more, but I'm hating on them. I think I see them. I'm like, well, I want to see them lose. Now, granted, I like Justin Fields. Seems like a nice enough guy. Hopefully he has some success, but overall, I'm not the biggest mark when it comes to Chicago or the Bears. So they have the San Francisco 49ers, which this will seem kind of weird. I think, 'cause they don't just exist for me. They do invoke some positive attributes for me, and actually slightly above the Rams for me. I think the 49ers just feel like of course, a historically good team. They've had great success, especially in recent years. I just love their players and the atmosphere they provoked. I think between them being significant enough in my life, and between the fun atmosphere that the coaching staff and the whole team's brand kind of invokes, especially having George Kittle helps a lot. Brock Purdy seeing a lot of success recently. And just kind of, I remember having a lot of fun memories of watching some of their games in 2013, 2014. So they have enough significance for me to say I like them enough. Kind of almost that extra bit that the Minnesota Vikings don't have for me. I don't really have much for the Minnesota Vikings. I have stuff for Adrian Peterson, but I don't really have anything from the Minnesota Vikings that I have with the San Francisco 49ers. So that's kind of where the 49ers get the extra bump from what rather the Minnesota Vikings would quite have. So take that as you will. Move on to the Philadelphia Eagles, and I love crazy fan bases. I do. I'm probably gonna put them. I'll put them below the Dolphins. I love the Eagles. I'm always gonna be rooting for them. They're a fun team to watch. It's a bird team. Their logos, also looking to the left, unlike a lot of other logos. I believe almost every other logo. So really cool. Philly's hard to not love when the fans a fan base. They're a little toxic, so that's why I'm putting them below the Dolphins. Can be a little toxic at times, a little too much at times. But I went to Super Bowl this last year for the Chiefs and Eagles. Every fan I saw there, Philadelphia Eagles, were excited and ready to go. Again, a little bit on the toxic side, but I love the brand. I love the the image they invoke for me. I love the kind of history behind them as well. Always kind of feeling like an underdog team that also was able to climb to the top of that ladder and make a name. So Philadelphia Eagles get a little bit of always rooting for them in my tier. The Raiders, straight F team. Now, of course, this is going to be the AFC West hate now. The Raiders are probably, unless I'm forgetting a team, probably my least favorite team in NFL history. Of course, it's a historical rivalry between Denver Broncos and the Raiders. Just not a big fan. The brands, it's a boring logo. It's a boring, now it's Las Vegas. Sure, it's cool. I get it. But it's the Buccaneers badly. The Raiders, what the heck? They're, are they Raiders? Are they Pirates? What? It's just pure black. There's no color. And it's honestly kind of a historically bad franchise. Not historically bad. It's a really badly ran franchise, quite frankly. It's kind of almost hard to watch some of the things they do. Whatever. Bitter hate. AFC West slander, I hear. But, yeah, I don't like them. The Green Bay Packers. I'm going to put them like them enough, and they're going to go top of like them enough. I like the history between the Green Bay Packers. I'm going to be rooting for them, especially recent years with them finally kind of going on to a new franchise quarterback. Went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to now Jordan Love. So what's going to happen there? It's a really cool story. Love, Brett Favre. I love Aaron Rodgers. And that kind of brand for Green Bay really puts them in the positive tier for me. The reason why I'm not putting them any above that, where my strong feelings kind of come into play, is that, for one, they're a really historically good team, whatever. That kind of puts them on markdown. But also, I don't know, for some reason the brand itself doesn't invoke a whole lot of extra positivity. It's really the players and the atmosphere that it's kind of created that put them in the like them enough category. Still like them enough, so still pretty good. Like them enough above the 49ers and the Rams. Next, we have the Washington Commanders, the Washington football team, the Washington Redskins, whatever you want to call them. They are going to go top of... No, they just exist. They exist. I'll put them top of they exist, though, because I remember fondly of RG3. I loved watching RG3 play. I thought he was a lot of fun when he was there for the very short amount of time, but he was a lot of fun in that regard for when he played for the Redskins. And now the Commanders are just kind of a team that exists for me. I don't have too much positivity, not too much negativity. I'm going to put them in the top of they exist for now just because I think the RG3 days really make me feel fondly of the team enough, for the franchise enough. It's historically bad ran franchise, I should say. Not historically bad, but historically badly ran franchise. So it also puts it in marked down. Maybe I do kind of put them in the bottom tier. No, I think positively a lot of the days I started watching football with the Washington Redskins, and I think they still go on the top of they exist. Arizona Cardinals, they just exist. I don't think I've ever really thought badly or positively about them. And a lot of time, I think a couple of years ago, when they were actually looking good and now they're awful, it was kind of intriguing to see Kyler Murray go off and all that, but I think this is a definition of a they exist team for me. I just don't care one way or the other too much of them. I'll root for them because they're more of an underdog team now, but yeah, they just exist for me for the most part. Pittsburgh Steelers, I like them enough. Funnily enough, I'm going to put them right above the Packers, which they have a good rivalry as well, especially with Super Bowl. But I like them enough. Ben Roethlisberger really showed a lot of character, and say what you will about him now, but I love the Pittsburgh Steelers, love their history, love just the city of Pittsburgh has always been a really cool one. The Steelers, the history behind the name, with the city being known for that, and of course, I don't know, the logo is kind of cool too with the 3 stars, the way it is. I'm a kind of a sucker for Big Ben. He kind of made me care a whole lot about it, and that was kind of the extra story between Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger. Those are like the 3 QBs that really made me feel something for football, and I won't necessarily always be rooting for them. Actually, you know what? I will put them in the always rooting for them category. I think they are strong enough there. They won't go above Philly. I think I still love Philly a little bit more. But the Big Ben, actually, you know what? I will put them above the Philadelphia Eagles, I think. It's really close because I like them for almost 2 different reasons. Philadelphia, I care about the atmosphere, while the Steelers, I care about their players. And I care about Yeah, okay, never mind. I convinced myself. Put them above the Philadelphia Eagles. I care a lot about Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin and honestly, the historical coaching staff from the Steelers, the history behind them. They are the team that doesn't get as credited with their franchise success. Patriots have just as many Super Bowl wins as them. They're the ones that look like they're on top, while the Steelers have historically been consistent and almost feels overshadowed. And the more I'm saying it out loud, every Steelers fan I've met who has been more fun than they have been toxic or bad in any regard. So I'm going to keep the Steelers and always rooting for them, because I always find myself always looking at them and always supporting them more than not. So take that as you will. Moving on to another team I'm always going to be rooting for, the Buffalo Bills. I'll put them right above the Eagles as well, and right below the Steelers, I believe. Ooh, it's a tough one. I'm going to put them right below the Steelers. I think that's more my family talking with me, is that the Bills are a big part of my dad's side of the family. Of course, they kind of were watching football, or more experienced in the football, when the Bills were, losing on the 4 Super Bowls in a row. So they kind of lived through that, and I hear it, and I want to see them do success. I love their fan base. Josh Allen, he's more in the they exist category for me, maybe more than the like him enough, but I like him enough. But I think overall the franchise history and the family connection make me care about them more than not. Now, I have almost no recollection of my caring for them in 2013-2014 era, but I do care about them enough now, especially seeing them do have success. I want to see them do well. I want to see them in the Super Bowl, as long as it's not to a detriment to my other teams in the AFC. I want to see them do well, straight and to the point. And I will put them above the Steelers, because that family connection really does hit home for me. If I'm always at home watching football and the Bills are on, we usually end up watching that game just because the Bills are so interconnected with our family. The Atlanta Falcons, I like them enough, and you'll notice I like most teams enough to really just put them above here. And actually, in recent memory, I really do like the Falcons more than these other teams. I don't know why. It's just a team I always almost find that I always root for them, but they're not quite to that point. It's almost where I see them, I'm like, I'm glad they're doing well. I'm glad to see them having success, especially I think from their hate from the 28-3 days. Matt Ryan made me care about them for a while, and they're a lot of fun to watch now. Their run game is really fun to watch with Bijan, and of course, a lot of promising attributes when it comes to their secondary and stuff like that. So take that as you will. I like the Atlanta Falcons. I like them enough. The Seahawks. I think I'm putting them there. I think I'm putting them in straight F teams. This is one of the teams I'm not too sure of. I can't put them. I'm just going to be hating on them. And I'll be hating on them slightly less than the Baltimore Ravens, and probably slightly less than the Chicago Bears. No, right below the Chicago Bears. Yeah, I can't put them in straight F teams. Not with the Baltimore Ravens there. I don't think the Baltimore Ravens are a straight F team for me. How do I do? Super Bowl 48. That's all I'll say. Super Bowl 48. But I like them enough. The Legion of Boom was exciting to watch, and it was really fun to root for when they weren't kicking my team's butt. So take that as you will. New England Patriots. They're just not my cup of tea. If you ask me, my prime days would be in straight F teams, but I've grown to appreciate the franchise and dynasty that they built. And Tom Brady, looking back at it, is a phenomenal player. He's one of a kind. He is the GOAT. And as much as I hate that his success really brought the detriment to a lot of really successful dynasties and teams as well, kind of shows how great that team was. And granted, they're not my cup of tea. They're not going to be a team I root for just because they've had good success. They're really consistent, and it feels like an overall kind of blandish brand for me. But I am going to put them at probably the top of not my cup of tea, just because I have the appreciation for them enough to not be hating on them or think they're a straight F team. Straight and to the point, I just think they're just not my cup of tea, and I think I'd rather see them do well than almost any of these other NFC teams. Right here now, notice there's 5 NFC teams not in these 2 categories. So take that as you will. The Cleveland Browns, do they just exist, or they're not my cup of tea? I think they just exist for me. I don't really have any strong feelings about the Cleveland Browns. I kind of have, their recent history. They're historically bad. It seems like they're historically bad, and it seems like they deserve it. And that's kind of where I'm at with them. It's kind of fun to watch them. They're a historically bad team that I sometimes enjoy watching. Their team members right now are really, really fun, but they also are just an awful franchise in more ways than one. So wow, this is actually really conflicting because I do have feelings about them, but I don't know where they lean. So I can't really put them in they exist. I'm gonna put them in like them enough, I think. Man, it's actually a tough one, guys. I don't know what I'm doing here. The Cleveland Browns invoke a lot of feelings for me now that I think about it. They don't just exist. I'm gonna lean like them enough, because I find them fun to watch. I find that I do revolve around kind of watching some of their games. I'm going to put them at the bottom of it because I'd rather see all these other teams succeed rather than them. But they're a team that can invoke a lot of feelings for me. But I'm going to lean like them enough since I think that that's where I lean more so with them. And take that as you will. And we'll leave it there. Houston Texans are probably my single favorite non-my team. I'll be honest with you. I want to see the Houston Texans succeed just because they are the latest franchise in the NFL history. 2002 came in, really didn't do very well for several seasons, and finally got their groove going on. Made it to the they made it past the wild card. They made it to the divisional round. Didn't quite make it to the conference. And ever since then, it's kind of driving down. Maybe C.J. Stroud kind of brings something back to life with the Houston Texans. I want to see them win and do something. Just because they're the newest team in the NFL, I like the idea of the Houston Texans, kind of a different brand from the Dallas Cowboys. And I just want to see something come from them. I really, really, really do. Even more than the Lions, I'll be honest with you. I know, especially now, I don't know, just something in me feels like the Texans are just a team I want to get behind a whole lot, and it's up there with the Lions. I'll be honest with you, but I don't know. I got to root for the Texans a little bit more than the Lions, and just in what I'm thinking, it's really hard for me to say that because I like Dan Campbell and all that enough, but I want to see the Houston Texans succeed enough. But then again, I really just like. Okay, you know what? Fine. These two teams are so similar and so different at the same time. Houston Texans are a historical. They're not a historical team. They're still building their history. Honestly, 20 plus years in the NFL. Well, Lions have had several decades. I say several many times, but just multiple decades of history of being bad. That guy, especially Dan Campbell being the head coach, I think kind of gives them the slight edge for me, but I want to see the Houston Texans do well. I really do. There's nothing more than I would love to see the Houston Texans versus Lions, except for Denver versus New Orleans. This hurts, but I'm going to go Lions right above Texans. But I love the Texans. I really do. They're historically bad, but I'm going to root for them almost every game. Kansas City Chiefs. You would think with me being AFC West hater, sorry, I'd put them in straight F teams. No, I like Patty Mahomes. I like Andy Reid. They seem like right now they don't invoke the feelings as strong as the Patriots did back in the day. And I don't know why the Patriots. Maybe it's because I was younger. Maybe it's because my dad had the passion against the Patriots too. I am going to lean that they're not my cup of tea, but I do care about them probably more than almost every team. Probably I care about the Patriots probably a little bit more. I probably care about the Buccaneers a little bit more. Yeah, we're gonna go there, right above the Giants, I think. I just like the branding. It's a cool team. I don't mind seeing them succeed. They're fine. I don't know. They're just not my cup of tea. I was almost about to say I like them enough, but I almost like them enough to not be hating on them is more the description I want to go with. And they may be in the AFC West, but I don't hate that they're always winning it. I'd rather see them win it than the Raiders, quite frankly. Dallas Cowboys. I am not a Dallas Cowboys hater. I am not at all. There's not my cup of tea. And they're probably not my cup of tea above every team except for Giants. Honestly, Giants are almost not in the hating on them tier, but I'm going to refrain from that just because I think I have enough positive memories. I have enough feelings about the Cowboys based on the people I've interacted with, where I don't like Dallas Cowboys fans for the most part. But I like their franchise. I like where the team's headed, and I think they're a historically good team. I enjoy watching them, but they're not my cup of tea, just frankly for the point of they're so historical that they're almost overrated, but also they're not overrated because a lot of people hate on them. It's just, quite frankly, I don't like getting mixed in with the whole thing, so I just don't really have too much of an opinion on them. But they're not my cup of tea. Straight into the point. Next up, the Los Angeles Chargers. I almost said Las Vegas because of the Raiders and blah, blah, blah. Again, AFC West hate would think that would be putting them in the straight F teams. Quite frankly, no, not at all, actually. Wow, am I really only going to put the Raiders? I thought I was going to put the Seahawks there, I guess. But, oh well. We'll see what other teams maybe end up there. The Los Angeles Chargers are going into the like 'em enough tier, and they're going to go above every team except for the Falcons. I'll put the Falcons above them. Here's what I'll say about the Chargers. I want to see them have success. I do. I really do. The branding's cool. I like the color scheme. And they're the only team in the AFC West that hasn't seen substantial franchise historical success. And so I wish that for them. I wish they didn't move from San Diego. They probably should lose some points for me. But I still find their team interesting enough and fun to watch. And if there's going to be one team in the AFC West that beats my Broncos, the Chargers are the team I would want to see win the most. Because I've seen the Chiefs. I've seen the Raiders. I've seen the Broncos all do well. So it almost gives me an edge to say I want to see the Chargers do semi-well. That's how I'll kind of state that into the point. And so that kind of gives you my divisional rankings favorites too. Actually, now that I look at it, I just don't care for the New York Jets at all. I think they're a straight-up team. Aaron Rodgers almost made me feel some sort of positivity towards them. But the more I think of it, I just don't. Maybe, they're not really in the straight-up teams. They're in the hating on them. Again, I'm kind of saying this when it does not even reach the amount of hatred I have for the Raiders. So I'll put them in the above every team but the Bears. I'm just hating on them. I don't know. I just don't like the franchise. I just don't like how cocky they can be. It's really hard to describe with the Jets, but I just don't like them. Straight into the point, purely. The Panthers, I am always rooting for them. And quite frankly, I'll probably always be rooting for them above the Steelers, maybe. It's pretty close between these three teams, but I think, again, the family connection really helps the Bills a lot. I'm going to be always rooting for the Panthers. I love the team. I love the branding. Again, they haven't seen much success. I love the Cam Newton days. Seeing Cam Newton play, it's probably the one thing that kind of kept me going past that, Super Bowl 50 run. Granted, he wasn't as good. And granted, seeing him play the couple years before the Super Bowl 50, I love just kind of seeing the franchise in general. But even Super Cam in the Super Bowl 50 time we played against him, I actually was kind of really happy about that Super Bowl because I love watching Super Cam, and I hated seeing him going off a little bit of a cliff the next couple of years. But I still always love seeing him, and then the Panthers, of course, to kind of went down to mediocrity. And I'm always going to be rooting for them. I really want to see them have those successful days again. I really wish they got Anthony Richardson to help connect in my mind the good old scrambling QB days. But quite frankly, I really just do like the Panthers. Straight to the point. Titans, I'm surrounded by Titans fans. I live in Tennessee, and I do like the Titans. They're going to invoke more positivity than negativity in my mind. But I barely like them enough. Honestly, they're going to go in the like them enough tier just purely because I'm around so many more Titans fans. And it's almost like a blind obedience to the Titans that they just see. Oh my gosh, Derrick Henry's great. Oh my gosh, Tannehill's going to save us. Oh my gosh, this is going to be our year. We're going to do it again. We're going to make it to the 1999 Super Bowl. It's going to be those days again. We're not going to lose. I'm getting a little bit tired of it. I live in Tennessee though. I've been in Nissan Stadium more times than any other stadium combined. And that feeling still invokes a lot of positivity for me. I see the players more so, and so I'm going to always have some more positivity. But, man, if I didn't live in Tennessee currently, probably would not have them as high just because I'm surrounded by so many Tennessee fans. The Colts, of course, me being a Peyton Manning mark kind of brings some positivity from that regard as well. I'm going to put them more in the above the Rams tier, but below the 49ers, Green Bay, Chargers, all that. Again, mostly from the 2013, 2014 days where they kind of were coming off the release, not release, but the loss of Peyton Manning. And kind of watching back, if there's a team that I do note the most when I watch games back or go back and look at stats, I look at the Colts a lot. Just because I appreciate their history a lot, their recent history, their not Super Bowl history, but since 2002 total franchise reconfiguration. I appreciate them a whole lot, and I still like to see them enough. It's kind of funny that right now the Titans are the third worst team in the AFC South, or my least favorite team in the AFC South. Even though I kind of end up rooting for. Wow, this is kind of interesting. This is very interesting indeed. That I live in Tennessee, but they're going to probably end up being, they could at least third on my least favorite teams. Wow, of the AFC South. Very interesting. But I think it's mostly invoking the positivity I have towards their history than it is their current state, if that makes sense. I could almost they exist for me currently, but their history almost invokes enough positivity for me to appreciate them. Finally, you got the Jaguars. Very similar with the Houston Texans and Lions. It just so happens they're in the AFC South. I always want to see them succeed. Honestly, I will want to see them succeed slightly more than the Texans, but not quite as much as the Lions. I want to see the Lions succeed, then the Jags, and the Texans in that order. 100%. Those are my top 5 teams are the Broncos, the Saints, the Lions, the Jags, and the Texans. Again, the Jags are just, again, newer team. I think 1999. I maybe you're a little bit wrong on that one. I don't remember them as well as the Houston Texans because I feel like it's easier to remember for me. But they're a newer franchise who hasn't had a whole lot of time to build a franchise, and they've only had a really a few year stint as a really good team that had a real shot. They made it to the AFC Championship and just lost out. And I want to see them get that success. I want to see the Jacksonville Jaguars make it to the Super Bowl, and I'm always gonna be rooting for them. This is my list. Honestly, it kind of turned out differently than I thought, just because I thought kind of expressing some of my more hatred teams were going to be more strongly invoked. But as I kind of talked through it, it seemed like I just had more positivity. And yes, of course, this tier list is going to end up being more positive than negative, just because I have 3, 6, 8, 9, 10 negative teams, and then take that as you will, 18 positive teams, with about 4 that I just feel neutral about. I mean, I'm gonna lean more in the positive range just because I have so many positive thoughts about football in general. Straight and to the point, I love NFL. I love the history I have with it. And I love the history of it, and I want to see all these teams succeed. I love to see, except for the Raiders, all these teams succeed and do well. And seeing the stories that get made up with the players involved and the franchise and the coaching staff is just something that's really unique for the NFL for me, at least. It feels like with the 18-week schedule, 4 playoff rounds basically, and that any team of any given week can win. And with so many stories being built from franchise history also to the players' history, it's something that feels unique to the NFL in a lot of ways, just because it's not baseball where it plays hundreds of games. It's not basketball where it feels you also play hundreds of games. It's a game you have to be very careful about. There's 18 games for a reason, just because it's a very dangerous sport, but it's also very entertaining. I will argue that if there is a no commercial break for a watching television, if it's just back to back to back to back, you're just watching the game just as it plays, the NFL would be my favorite game series to watch. Yeah, it's over college football too. For some reason, I just like the intricacy and the chessmate matches of the NFL than I do than the one-sided or the explosiveness of the college football scene. I love watching soccer in person. I will say that's probably my favorite in-person experience. But hockey just doesn't do it for me. With the hitting doesn't feel the same. It's just that there's so much to football, so many small rules, that I just love it. And the brandings that these teams have created are there for a reason. They happen for a reason. It's so fascinating to watch as it unfolds for the rest of the season, seeing the stats, the way they accumulate. And it's just something really fun to watch, and something really fun to get together with people and go for. The NFL game means something versus the basketball game or a baseball game. Until you get to the March Madness or the MLB series or whatever, those don't really matter too much until that moment. What the NFL season feels like matters the whole time. And that's why I appreciate the NFL so much, and I appreciate these teams, all of them, even the Raiders, for what they've done for the NFL scene, and just the history and the storylines they've created and the entertainment they've provided me, and the memories they provided me as well. So thank you to the NFL. This is my favorite teams in order from top left to bottom right. How'd you guys enjoy? What's your favorite team? What's your top 5 favorite teams? What's your top 5 least favorite teams? Leave them down below. Leave a like, subscribe, and join us in the rest of this story that we are creating here at StraightA. Thank you guys for watching. StraightA Dawson out.